thank you each for coming back.
Muchas gracias por
Ready to go for another 5 hours? You ready? Well, you will be very delighted with this next presentation. Mariano is an extremely bright individual, a great friend, and a real servant of the freedom-loving people throughout the world. He's given his life to that, and thank you, sir, for being with us today.
Robert, thank you very much for those kind words and for raising the expectations too high. I hope I don't disappoint all of you, but it's an honor for me to be here supporting my friend, freedom fighter, Congressman Pittenger. I'm going to address you today on the matter of the authoritarian expansion in the Americas of China. It's a very important topic for our hemisphere and for the world. Stakes for global security and democratic resilience are converging across regions. We're living through a strategic inflection point, one in which the tools of influence are no longer warships and treaties alone, but data flows, infrastructure contracts, digital ecosystems, and illicit finance. This is especially true in the Americas, where authoritarian capital, particularly from the People's Republic of China, is reshaping the geoeconomic landscape, sometimes subtly, sometimes brazenly, but always strategically. What I want to share with you today is not a call to isolate, not to alarm, but to clarify that the expansion of Chinese influence in Latin America and the Caribbean is neither benign nor limited to commerce. It's systemic, multi-domain, and already yielding long-term strategic consequences. It deserves a coordinated and urgent response, not just from Washington, but from all democracies who value sovereignty, transparency, and the rule of law. Let us start with the architecture. China's engagement in the Americas is now firmly entrenched. In just 2 decades, it has become the top trading partner for most of South America and a dominant lender, investor, and technology provider throughout the hemisphere. This is not a coincidence. It is the result of a deliberate, well-resourced, and globally integrated strategy. China's approach involves multiple levers: infrastructure control, including over 40 port projects across the region, with the key footholds in Panama, Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, and the Caribbean, as our friend Joseph Humeyer has been highlighting for many years. Satellite and space infrastructure, including the PLA-run Espacio Lejano station in Neuquén, Argentina, and additional stations in Chile and Bolivia. Digital ecosystems, especially through Huawei, ZTE, and surveillance technology embedded in safe city and smart city projects. Financial entrenchment through opaque sovereign lending, currency swap agreements, and elite targeted influence operations, as we experienced firsthand, Robert. This model is attractive to political and business elites under fiscal stress because it comes without transparency, conditionality, and regulatory obligations typically demanded by multilateral lenders or democratic donors. But make no mistake, this capital is not neutral. It's strategic. It trades short-term economic gains for long-term institutional vulnerability. Among the most under-discussed facets of Chinese influence is its growing control of maritime logistics infrastructure. Chinese state-owned enterprises such as COSCO, China Merchants Port, and Hutchinson operate or hold long-term concessions in at least 40 ports, from Freeport in the Bahamas to Colón and Balboa in Panama, to Chancay in Peru and the port of Guayaquil in Ecuador, to Paranagua in Brazil. These ports often sit at or near critical choke points such as the Panama Canal, or are nodes along supply chains for critical minerals, energy, and food. These are not merely commercial assets. They are dual-use footholds. They provide surveillance potential over commercial and naval traffic, critical infrastructure pre-positioning for use in potential future conflicts, reduced oversight, especially in free trade zones where transshipment of illicit goods and precursor chemicals is harder to trace. China's access to these ports complements its satellite and space tracking infrastructure, allowing it to monitor activity across sea, air, and orbit, a form of civil-military fusion deployed far beyond East Asia. Perhaps more dangerously, China has positioned itself as the default digital infrastructure provider for Latin America's telecommunications, smart cities, and surveillance systems. Through Huawei and ZTE, China supplies core infrastructure for 4G and 5G networks, facial recognition, license plate tracking, and behavioral analytics for urban surveillance systems, cloud services, data storage, and biometric ID tools for government applications. This digital architecture, under the guise of modernization, exports Chinese internal security practices into countries that lack robust legal safeguards or democratic checks. Data can be, and often is, exfiltrated, repurposed, and analyzed by Chinese authorities. User data can be and is collected by Chinese companies, which can then be transferred in whole or part to Chinese government authorities. The implications for personal privacy, civil liberties, and national security are profound. Let us now address a dimension that rarely receives the geopolitical attention it deserves, and it's an area of my expertise, which is the Chinese role in enabling transnational organized crime. The synthetic drug crisis, particularly the fentanyl epidemic, has made headlines in North America and beyond. But behind the cartels lie Chinese brokers providing precursor chemicals routed via Ecuador, Peru, and Mexico, sophisticated laundering services through mirror exchanges, underground banking, and crypto mixing, and logistics and shell companies that obscure ownership and shipment routes. U.S. law enforcement estimates Chinese networks now launder between 30 and 40% of cartel proceeds through shadow banking systems operating in Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, Panama, and Mexico City. This is not merely a criminal ecosystem. It is a system of financial evasion, empowering actors who corrode institutions, fuel violence, and destabilize democracies from within. Economic entrenchment begets political leverage. Chinese companies often negotiate secret contracts or memoranda of understanding that bypass legislative scrutiny. Political elites are targeted with state-sponsored goodwill tours, cultural exchanges, and strategic donations. Public discourse is shaped through Confucius institutes, state media, and co-opted influencers, with competing narratives about corruption, debt, or democratic backsliding muted. In short, Beijing cultivates influence at the top while controlling information from the bottom, a dual strategy of elite capture and public manipulation. It is important to acknowledge why this model works. Latin America needs capital. Fiscal constraints, decaying infrastructure, and popular demands for better services have created a perfect environment for fast, flexible financing. But the terms of that capital, opaque, exclusive, and often coercive, undermine the very development it claims to support. Projects are awarded to Chinese firms using Chinese workers with Chinese technology under Chinese financing. Environmental and labor standards are circumvented. Debt burdens grow. And when countries attempt to renegotiate, strategic assets, not just repayment, are often asked to be put on the table. Now, one frequently raised and entirely legitimate argument in the region is this: why shouldn't Latin American countries engage with China if Western partners have failed to meet their development needs? To that I offer this response. The issue is not about engaging with China. The issue is doing so without safeguards, without transparency, without reciprocity. What many countries discover too late is that the initial capital comes with strings that tighten over time. Debt renegotiation pressures, political interference, strategic silence on human rights, or votes aligned with Beijing in international forums. There is no contradiction between pursuing sovereign economic interests and demanding clean, accountable, rules-based partnerships. But that requires us, all of us, to offer alternatives, to invest, to trade fairly, and to support regional infrastructure without conditionality. Here in Europe, and particularly in Spain, we must also reflect on the role played, directly or indirectly, in this shifting architecture. European multinationals and banks, often acting as commercial intermediaries, have at times facilitated the entry of Chinese capital or technology into the Americas without due scrutiny of its strategic implications. Development finance, co-investment consortia, and free trade advocacy must now be viewed not only through economic lenses, but through security filters as well. Because make no mistake, Latin America is no longer a peripheral theater. It is a front line in the contest for global norms, technological dominance, and democratic resilience. This is not just about Latin America, though. This is about the kind of international order we allow to flourish. What's at stake, it's not just debt, it's alignment. Alignment with norms that tolerate opacity, enable corruption, and punish dissent. Alignment with technological architectures that are monitored, manipulated, and exported without restraint. Alignment with governance models that the state is unaccountable, where the state is unaccountable and sovereignty is negotiable. A final reflection, parliamentarians, friends, we face a strategic crossroads in the Americas, but the consequences extend globally. If we allow opaque authoritarian capital to build the backbone of Latin America's ports, satellites, digital infrastructure, and financial systems, we're not just losing influence. We're ceding sovereignty, undermining the rule of law, and creating space for criminal and state actors to converge in ways that threaten democratic societies from within. But if we act with clarity, coordination, and commitment, by building trusted partnerships, promoting transparent alternatives, and defending the foundational values of governance and dignity, then we can shape a hemisphere that is secure, resilient, and free. If we believe in a rules-based order, we must defend it where it is being quietly displaced. If we believe in transparency and accountability, we must support the region in demanding it. And if we believe in democratic resilience, we must invest strategically, urgently, and collectively in partners who still seek it. The contest for the hemisphere's future is already underway. It is not decided by tanks or treaties, but by ports, platforms, and payment systems. Let us choose with clarity and courage the side of sovereignty, the rule of law, and democracy. Thank you, Robert.
Outstanding.
Thank you, friends.